welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something huge, right? Social media. And that thing we all kind of do, comparing ourselves online.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to avoid, isn't it?
Yeah.
In our, hyper-connected world. I mean, these platforms are great for staying in touch, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they've also created this constant stream of other people's lives.
And usually the best parts of their lives, right?
Exactly, the highlight reel version.
Yeah, and you might think, oh, it's just a quick scroll, no big deal. But the material we looked at, wow, it really shows how this comparison habit can mess with how we feel.
Definitely. Leading to things like anxiety or just feeling generally down.
And even affecting how we see our own bodies.
Right. And our sources dig into the psychology of why we do this. Why are we wired this way? And maybe more importantly, they offer some really solid evidence-based ways to handle it better.
Strategies to navigate social media, yeah. So it actually supports our well-being, not harms it.
That's the goal.
So our mission today is pretty clear. Let's unpack why we fall into this comparison trap on social media, and then pull out some practical, actionable things you can do to build a healthier relationship with these platforms.
Yeah. And hopefully boost your overall happiness in the process.
And this isn't just some small thing affecting a few people.
Not at all. Think about it, over 5.1 billion users globally in early 2024. That's huge. And the links between comparing ourselves online and mental health issues like anxiety, depression, body image problems, they're well documented.
So it's a real public health issue, actually.
It really is.
Okay, so let's dig in. That fundamental question. Why do we even do this? Why compare?
Well, at its heart, it's a really basic human drive. Leon Festinger talked about this way back in the 50s, social comparison theory.
Festinger, right?
Yeah. He basically said we have this innate need to figure out where we stand, to evaluate our opinions, our abilities, and when there aren't clear, objective ways to measure ourselves.
Like if you don't know how fast you ran, you look at other runners.
Exactly. You look to other people as benchmarks. It's fundamental to how we understand ourselves.
Makes total sense. But social media throws a wrench in the works, doesn't it? It adds layers.
Oh, absolutely. It complicates things because comparison isn't just one thing. There are different directions, right? Upward, downward, and lateral.
Okay, break those down.
So upward comparison is looking at people you see as, well, better off than you in some way. And social media is flooded with this because everyone's posting their wins, their perfect moments.
That curated, idealized stuff.
Precisely. And that can make you feel inadequate, envious. It could really knock your self-esteem.
Yeah, that feeling scrolling through thinking, wow, everyone's life is amazing except mine. Been there.
We all have. Then there's downward comparison. That's when you compare yourself to people you perceive as maybe worse off.
Okay.
And this can actually make you feel better. It can boost your mood, your self-esteem. People sometimes do it to kind of regulate their feelings.
Right, like, okay, maybe things aren't so bad for me after all.
Exactly. A little mental pick-me-up sometimes.
Yeah.
And the third type is lateral comparison. Looking at people you see as similar to you, your peers.
Ah, like comparing notes with colleagues or friends in the same boat.
Yeah, that's often about getting an accurate sense of where you stand relative to others like you for self-assessment.
Okay, 3 types. But it really feels like social media just cranks the volume way up on that upward comparison, the one that makes us feel crummy.
It definitely does.
Why is that the one that dominates so much online?
It's mostly because of how the information is presented. Like we said, curation. People show the highlight reel. It's not the full, messy reality of life.
Right.
So the social information you're getting is fundamentally skewed. It's tilted towards the positive, the successful, the beautiful.
Which makes it really hard to get an accurate read on yourself.
Incredibly hard. And it just naturally leads to more of those upward comparisons that can bring you down. The whole system pushes you that way.
It's like comparing your everyday reality to someone else's movie trailer.
That's a great way to put it. And visual platforms, Instagram, TikTok. They pour gasoline on this fire.
Because it's all images and videos.
Exactly. The focus is visual, making appearance and lifestyle front and center for comparison. And users are constantly doing this selective self-presentation thing, sharing only the best angles, the best moments, often filtered, often edited.
We forget there's a real person behind the perfect post, probably dealing with their own stuff.
We do. We start believing that everyone else's life is consistently that good, that easy, that glamorous.
Yeah.
And another layer here is how we react to comparisons. It's not just who we compare to, but how. Does it lead to contrast or assimilation?
Okay, what's the difference there?
Contrast is when you focus on the differences.
Yeah.
You see someone successful and think, wow, I'll never be like that. That leads to envy, discouragement.
Makes sense. Feeling separate, lacking.
Right.
Mhm.
Assimilation is when you focus on the similarities. You see their success and think, hey, maybe I could achieve that too. It can be motivating, inspiring.
So seeing someone else succeed could actually push you forward if you feel you could potentially get there too.
Exactly. That's the potential upside. But, and this is a big but on social media,
Uh-oh.
the standards are often so idealized, so unrealistic, especially with influencers and editing.
Right. It's not an achievable goal sometimes.
Often it's not. So
Yeah.
instead of feeling motivated, assimilation, you just feel this chronic sense of failure or dissatisfaction because you're striving for something unattainable.
You're chasing a phantom, basically.
Yes.
A composite ideal made up of everyone's best bits.
That's a perfect description. It's an illusion. And the speed of it all.
Yeah, it's relentless.
You're just constantly hit with this stuff, this comparative information. It encourages these quick emotional reactions, these self-judgments, without really pausing to think it through.
Just react, feel bad, scroll on.
Kind of, yeah. It bypasses thoughtful self-assessment.
Okay, so what is the actual toll? Let's talk about the real-world negative impacts on our well-being.
Well, self-esteem is a big one. There's a strong link, a correlation, between frequent upward comparison and lower self-esteem.
Makes intuitive sense.
Yeah. People who compare more often tend to report more depressive symptoms, feel worse about themselves overall, constantly seeing perfect just chips away at your own sense of worth, you know? And studies show that people who naturally have a higher tendency to compare what researchers call social comparison orientation, their self-esteem takes a bigger hit after being on social media.
So it creates this cycle, right? You feel bad, maybe you go online for a bit.
Exactly, seeking validation.
But then you see more stuff that makes you feel inadequate, and it spirals.
That's nice. And it goes beyond self-esteem. It's linked to increased anxiety and depression, too, especially those upward appearance comparisons. They really contribute to appearance anxiety.
I can see that, especially for younger people.
Absolutely. Adolescents, young adults, particularly young women, feel immense pressure from these digital beauty standards.
Yeah.
And ironically, even though it's social media, all this comparison can actually make people feel more lonely, more isolated.
Wow. Surrounded by digital crowds, but feeling more alone.
It's a paradox. The negative impacts can really build on each other. Low self-esteem leads to more comparison seeking online, which leads to more triggers, which damages self-esteem further.
A really tough loop to break.
Very tough. And body image. It gets hit hard, doesn't it?
Especially with Instagram, TikTok, all the visual stuff.
Absolutely. Visual platforms make your body a prime target for comparison. And the research is pretty clear. Exposure to those idealized, often heavily edited images fuels body dissatisfaction.
Again, especially in younger groups.
Yes, adolescents and young women seem particularly vulnerable. Instagram specifically has been closely tied to increases in body dissatisfaction. And that dissatisfaction, it's a known risk factor for developing eating disorders.
That's really serious. The pressure is immense.
It is. And there's a psychological theory that helps explain this self-discrepancy theory.
Okay, what's that?
It basically says we feel bad when there's a big gap between our actual self, how we see ourselves now, and our ideal self, how we want to be.
And social media widens that gap.
Massively.
Yeah.
It constantly throws these unrealistic ideal selves at us based on all that curated content. So you're comparing your real, flawed human self to this impossible standard, this kind of collective online phantom ideal.
Comparing yourself to something that doesn't even really exist in one person.
Exactly. And another related concept is self-objectification.
Sounds unpleasant.
It is. It happens when you engage in so much upward appearance comparison that you start internalizing an outsider's view of your own body.
Like you're constantly looking at yourself from the outside, judging.
Yes, seeing your body primarily as an object to be evaluated. And research shows this mediates the link between upward comparison and appearance anxiety. It accounts for a big chunk of that effect.
Wow, that constant self-monitoring must be exhausting.
Incredibly. It drains cognitive resources, biases your thinking, ramps up anxiety and stress, and it might even spill over beyond appearance, affecting your overall sense of well-being.
Okay, so we see the damage it can do. What's actually driving this? What fuels the comparison fire on these platforms?
It's a mix of things. First, the platforms themselves, their dynamics.
Algorithms.
Yeah, algorithms are designed to keep you hooked, maximize engagement, and sometimes that means they might inadvertently push content towards you that triggers comparison stuff that makes you envious or feel like you're missing out or even outraged.
content that gets a reaction.
Exactly. Sensational stuff often gets more eyeballs.
So the platform's design can actually make comparison worse for some people.
It can, especially for those who might already be vulnerable. Then you have the metrics, the likes, the follower counts, the view numbers.
Yeah, the numbers game.
Right. They become these visible scores of social validation. It's easy to start comparing your numbers to others, feeling inadequate if yours aren't high enough. It can even push people to be inauthentic, just chasing those metrics.
And the little dopamine hit from getting likes reinforces it all.
Absolutely. It taps into basic reward pathways in the brain.
Feels like a popularity contest you never signed up for.
Kind of. And don't forget the format. Those highlight reels, stories, stuff that disappears. It encourages sharing only the best moments, leaving out the mundane, the difficult.
Which leads us back to that false assumption that everyone else's life is just better.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's influencer culture.
Huge factor.
Influencers often present these incredibly curated, often unattainable lifestyles and standards for everything looks, wealth, travel, happiness.
Stuff that most people can't realistically achieve.
Right. And studies link exposure to this kind of content with negative self-perception, body image issues, anxiety, depression. Plus, sometimes influencers promote harmful products or don't disclose sponsorships, making the comparisons even more skewed and unfair.
You're comparing yourself to an advert, essentially.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So those are platform factors. But personal factors are huge too.
Like FOMO. Fear of missing out.
Big time. That anxiety about missing out on rewarding experiences drives people to check social media constantly.
Which means more exposure to triggers for comparison.
Exactly. FOMO-fueled upward comparisons really harm self-esteem and can contribute to depression. It taps into that deep need to belong, the fear of being left out.
That constant checking, seeing what everyone else is up to, it's exhausting.
It really is. And individual personality traits matter a lot, too. Some people just naturally compare themselves more. They have a higher social comparison orientation, or SKO.
They're just more tuned in to how they stack up against others.
Yeah, and they're more affected by it. Then there's neuroticism, the tendency to experience negative emotions like anxiety or sadness.
If you're already prone to feeling down, comparisons hit harder.
They often do. More intense negative feelings after an unfavorable comparison, more vulnerability to problematic social media use, even depression. FOMO can actually connect neuroticism to these outcomes.
Interesting. What about perfectionism?
That plays a role too, especially the maladaptive kind of being overly self-critical, worrying intensely about mistakes. Perfectionists might compare constantly, ruminating on it, defining their success by whether they're outperforming others. They might also focus heavily on presenting a flawless image online.
So if you're already hard on yourself, social media gives you endless ammunition.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And your baseline self-esteem level matters too.
Lower self-esteem makes you more vulnerable.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
More susceptible to the negative impact of upward comparisons. And paradoxically, low self-esteem might drive you to social media seeking validation.
Which exposes you to more comparison triggers. Back to that cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Self-esteem is both an antecedent and a consequence here.
What about media literacy? Does understanding how this stuff works help?
Definitely. Lower media literacy, sort of taking everything online at face value, makes you more susceptible. Higher media literacy means you're more aware of the constructed nature of it all, the risks, the benefits. You might filter content better, use it more actively.
Like having a critical lens when you scroll?
Exactly. And crucially, all these things interact. Platform algorithms might feed idealized content to someone high in neuroticism with FOMO.
Creating a perfect storm for negative comparison.
Precisely. It's not just one thing, it's this complex web.
And then you mentioned situational triggers too.
Yeah, things that happen in the moment, like feeling stressed or bored or getting stuck ruminating on something.
Turning to social media to cope or distract yourself.
Right. But it can backfire. It might reinforce bad coping habits or just increase your exposure to comparison triggers while you're already feeling low. Some research even suggests scrolling can make you more bored afterwards.
Oh, interesting.
And that repetitive thinking, social media rumination, dwelling on posts, likes, comments, is linked to poorer mental health. Upward comparison can actually bridge the gap between low mindfulness and that kind of rumination.
Wow. And life changes too, like big transitions.
Yes. Periods of uncertainty often heighten our need for self-evaluation. We look to others to see how we're doing, how to navigate things.
So starting a new job, moving, relationship changes.
Exactly. Adolescence is obviously a key vulnerable time, but adult transitions can trigger it too. Seeing peers' positive career posts when you're feeling stuck, for example.
So when you're already feeling a bit shaky, social media can amplify those comparison feelings.
It certainly can. It offers connection, but also opens the door to potentially painful comparisons.
Okay, wow. That's a lot about the problem. But the good news is we can actually do something about it, right? We're not just helpless victims of the algorithm.
Absolutely not. There are loads of practical, evidence-based strategies we can use to push back and protect our well-being.
Let's get into those. Where do we start?
Mindfulness and emotional regulation are fantastic starting points. It begins with awareness, noticing your triggers, which accounts, which types of posts, what time of day tends to make you feel bad.
Paying attention to that sinking feeling, maybe?
Exactly, noticing the physical sensations too. Your body often tells you when you're having an emotional reaction to comparison, even after brief exposure.
So becoming more of an observer of your own reactions while scrolling.
Precisely. And you can use specific mindfulness exercises around your social media time.
Like what?
Like before you even open the app, just pause. Take a couple of conscious breaths. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And what's my intention for opening this app? Am I looking for connection, information, just distracting myself, trying to avoid something?
Setting an intention before you dive in.
Yeah, aiming for purposeful engagement. Then, while you're using it, try to just observe thoughts and emotions without reacting. Notice that I'm not good enough. Thought. Acknowledge it, but don't get swept away. Pay attention to how different content makes you feel. Check in again. How do I feel now? Energized or drained? Did I stick to my intention? Was that actually good for my well-being?
Creating space for conscious choice.
Exactly. Mindfulness helps reduce that rumination. It can encourage more helpful comparisons or just fewer unhelpful ones. It benefits self-esteem. It's like installing a mental pause button.
I like that. What else? You mentioned CBT techniques.
Yeah, cognitive restructuring.
Yeah.
It comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's about identifying and challenging those negative, often irrational thought patterns that comparison kicks up.
Like catastrophizing. My vacation looks terrible compared to theirs. My whole life is awful.
Exactly. Or global evaluation. They're so successful, I'm a total failure. These are cognitive distortions. CBT helps you spot these automatic negative thoughts. ANTs. Question their validity and replace them with more balanced, realistic thoughts.
So catching that thought, everyone's vacation looks better, and actively thinking.
Okay, hold on. This is a highlight reel. It's designed to look amazing. It's not the whole story. My vacation had good parts too.
Reframing it based on reality.
Yes. Remembering social media isn't objective truth. It's curated, often for engagement. Things like thought diaries can really help practice this.
Okay, practical. What about self-compassion? How does that fit in?
Self-compassion is crucial. It's different from self-esteem.
How so?
Self-esteem is often about your value, and it can depend on external things, achievements, validation. Self-compassion is about treating yourself with kindness when you're suffering or feel inadequate.
Like you would treat a friend.
Exactly. It has three parts. Self-kindness, being gentle, not harsh. Common humanity, recognizing everyone's struggles, you're not alone. And mindfulness, observing your pain without judgment.
So instead of beating yourself up for feeling envious after scrolling.
You acknowledge the feeling with kindness. Okay, I'm feeling envious right now. That's tough. Many people feel this way sometimes.
That sounds much healthier. Are there specific ways to practice it?
Yes. There's the self-compassion break, acknowledging pain, common humanity, offering kindness, using soothing touch like hands on your heart while saying kind things to yourselves. Consciously changing critical self-talk, softening that inner voice, even writing a compassionate letter to yourself.
Writing a letter.
Yeah, addressing your insecurities from the perspective of someone unconditionally loving and supportive. Research shows higher self-compassion makes you feel less inadequate when you see others' shiny lives online.
A buffer against the comparison effect. Makes sense. What about understanding the media itself better?
Yes, enhancing critical media literacy, or CML. It's vital. It's the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and even create media. Understanding the context, how it's made, its impact, questioning the power structures behind it.
So not just consuming, but thinking about what you're consuming.
Exactly. Deconstructing it. Recognizing that content, especially from influencers or brands, is constructed. It's not raw reality.
Photos are edited, videos are cut, narratives are shaped.
Right. Understanding the motivations, engagement, selling products, maybe undisclosed sponsorships. Realizing people create online personas. Selecting what they show for social desirability.
Developing those critical thinking skills.
Yes. Questioning everything. Who made this? Why? What's missing? Recognizing your own biases, the echo chambers algorithms create. It involves logical thinking, spotting assumptions, interpreting nuances, judging claims.
It's like becoming a media detective for your own feed.
That's a good way to think about it.
Mm.
Digital literacy programs help people see how false self-presentation and comparison fuel fears of negative evaluation.
Okay, so be mindful, reframe thoughts, be compassionate, be critical. What about practical usage habits?
Strategic usage is key. You have control. Curate your feed actively.
Unfollow, mute, block.
Yes. Accounts that consistently make you feel bad. Mute or unfollow. Actively seek out content that inspires, educates, uplifts you, stuff that aligns with your values.
Declutter your digital space.
Exactly. And set time limits. Be intentional. Use the tools built into phones or apps.
Does limiting time actually work?
Research suggests it can. One study showed limiting use to 30 minutes a day reduced depression symptoms. But it might be less about quantity and more about the quality and intentionality of your use.
Okay. Digital detoxes? Do they help?
They can. Taking breaks, short periods, screen-free zones, longer abstentions can reduce stress, improve focus, even sleep. Start small.
Manage notifications, too.
Definitely. Turn off non-essential ones. Reduce those constant pings pulling you back in. It helps break that habit loop tied to both external cues, notifications, and internal ones, like FOMO.
Makes sense. And be less passive.
Yes. Shift from passive scrolling, just consuming, which is linked more strongly to anxiety and depression.
To active, mindful engagement.
Right. Leaving thoughtful comments, sharing things you find valuable, connecting positively with others, maybe even creating your own authentic content. Focusing on supportive communities.
Be a participant, not just a spectator.
Well put.
Okay, these are great strategies. But how do we build that deeper long-term resilience so comparison doesn't knock us off balance so easily?
Great question. It's about building internal resources and shifting focus. First, fostering internal validation.
Meaning?
Shifting away from relying on external validation, likes, comments, follower counts, for your sense of worth. That stuff is fickle, unreliable.
Creates a fragile sense of self.
Exactly. Internal validation means affirming your own feelings and thoughts without judgment, recognizing your inherent worth, regardless of what others think or how your posts perform. Social media metrics don't define your value as a person.
Easier said than done sometimes, but crucial.
It takes practice. And related to that is actively recognizing and celebrating your offline achievements.
Aiding self-esteem beyond the screen.
Yes. Define success for yourself outside the digital world. Set real-world goals, SMART goals, maybe even personal KPIs if that helps. Celebrate milestones, new skills, completed projects.
Hobbies, volunteering.
Perfect examples. Things that build confidence and fulfillment independent of online approval. Diversify your self-esteem portfolio.
I like that phrase. And strengthening real-life connections.
Absolutely essential. Prioritize face-to-face interactions. They offer much richer communication, nuance, genuine connection.
Less room for misinterpretation than text or curated posts.
For sure. And engage in offline activities you enjoy, hiking, art, sports, whatever it is. They bring joy, connection, skill development. Reducing social media time frees up time for these enriching things.
Makes sense. You also mentioned gratitude earlier.
Yes, the power of gratitude is immense. It actively shifts your perspective.
From what you lack to what you have.
Exactly. It buffers against envy and comparison. Research shows it improves self-esteem and can reduce the tendency to compare.
Sure.
Gratitude journaling is a simple, effective practice.
Just writing down things you're thankful for.
Yeah. Even small things. It helps you appreciate your own life more. There's some mixed research, but generally it's seen as beneficial.
Okay. What about mindset shifts? You mentioned JOMO.
Yes. Embracing JOMO, the joy of missing out instead of FOMO.
So finding happiness and not doing everything, not seeing everything.
Right. Being present and content with where you are, what you're doing, without that constant nagging feeling you should be elsewhere, or doing something cooler you saw online.
How do you cultivate that?
Intentional disengagement sometimes. Appreciating your real connections. Using your time deliberately. Learning to say no sometimes. Taking tech-free breaks. It reclaims your mental energy for what matters to you. Builds intrinsic worth.
Trading anxiety for contentment.
That's the idea. Another key mindset is a growth mindset.
Believing you can improve versus thinking your abilities are fixed.
Exactly. A growth mindset means you embrace challenges, persist through setbacks, see effort as the path to mastery, learn from criticism, and find inspiration in other success.
How does that help with comparison?
It changes how you interpret seeing someone else succeed. Instead of feeling threatened, contrast. You might see it as information, as something to learn from, assimilation. It reframes comparison as a potential opportunity, not just a threat to your ego.
That's a powerful shift.
It really is. And finally, really consciously aligning your social media use with your personal values.
Being clear on why you're using each platform.
Yes. Define your purpose. Set goals that reflect your intrinsic values, not just chasing external metrics. Focus your limited time and energy online on activities that genuinely align with what's important to you.
Making it a tool that serves your values, not the other way around.
Precisely. And related to that is cultivating authentic self-expression.
Being real online.
And offline. Starting with self-awareness, knowing your values, beliefs, practicing mindful sharing, why am I posting this? Embracing vulnerability, imperfection, focusing on posting things that are maybe encouraging, supportive, real, uplifting.
If more people did that, it could shift the whole online environment.
It could. Normalizing realness helps counteract the overwhelming tide of idealization and reduces the negative comparison pressure for everyone.
Wow, okay, that's a really comprehensive toolkit. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway?
I think it's understanding that social media comparison is, yeah, it's complex. It's amplified by these platforms. We've talked about the psychology, the impacts, the drivers, but the core message is you're not powerless.
Right.
By using these strategies, mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, self-compassion, critical media literacy, strategic use, and by building that long-term resilience, internal validation, offline life, gratitude, JOMO, growth mindset, aligning with values, being authentic, you really can lessen the negative impact.
It's not about stopping comparison completely, because maybe that's impossible.
Probably impossible. It's a human thing.
But it's about developing a more conscious, resilient, and kinder relationship with ourselves and with social media.
Exactly. Learning to notice comparison and then choosing a healthier response.
Sure.
Prioritizing your own well-being. These are ongoing practices, not overnight fixes.
Right, it's a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
But by loosening that grip of comparison bit by bit, you create space.
Space to be more authentic.
Yeah, to connect with who you really are, your values, and the richness of your actual life, the one happening off screen.
That's a powerful goal.
It really is. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is this. Just consider one small thing, one actionable step you can take this week, starting today maybe, to cultivate a slightly more mindful, more self-compassionate relationship with your digital world.
Just one small step.
Yeah. Because that journey towards living more authentically, less swayed by comparison, that's a really powerful act of self-care.